Every CEO's journey has its Everest. The moments when the path forward feels steep, uncertain, and alone. With Sherpa CEO coaching, you don't climb alone. Our experienced coaches are your guides, helping you break through barriers, sharpen your strategy, strengthen your leadership, and build a team that can carry you higher. With tailored one-on-one coaching, strategic planning, and real accountability, your summit is within reach. Sherpa CEO Coaching, your guide to confidence, clarity, and extraordinary business growth. Get coached and learn more at sherpaceo.com.
Welcome to the Entrepreneurial Journey with your host, Dave Westcott. The Entrepreneurial Journey is a weekly podcast that streams live every Tuesday at 9:15 a.m. Pacific on Dave's YouTube channel and LinkedIn profile. Now here's Dave with this week's episode.
Good morning and welcome to the Entrepreneurial Journey. I'm your host, Dave Westcott, and I have with me this morning special guest, Tino Dietrich, founder and CEO of the Dietrich Institute. Tino, good morning.
Good morning, good morning, good morning.
Is that a real background behind you, or is that a screensaver?
It is a real background, but it is a screensaver. That's my backyard in my hometown, Hamburg, Germany.
Okay, so that looks...
It's not Miami. People go like, that's not Miami. I'm like, no, it's not. It looks more like Boston or something.
It does. It looks nice back there. It looks peaceful.
It is. It's peaceful. It's actually one of the greenest cities in the world.
Really?
Hamburg, Germany. I do not work for the tourism bureau, just for the record.
You know what? It's good to know. I'll tell you what. I'm in Seattle, Washington, and it looks very, very, very close to Washington.
Yep.
I mean,
so, but you go to Hamburg and I go to Seattle, Washington, and we exchange. But yeah, I heard good things about Seattle.
Yeah, Seattle's a beautiful place. Miami's nice too. It's a little warmer. In some ways, a little nicer. But, well, thanks for being on the show. You are a CEO coach, right? That's basically, in kind of in a nutshell, you're a visionary entrepreneur, CEO coach, helping individuals and couples work through and thrive in their lives. That's basically, in a quick nutshell, that's part of what you do. But I want to back up from there. How did you get into coaching? How did you even start in that path?
I've been coaching for a while, but there has been a moment in my life about 5-6 years ago when I got really sick, ended up in the ICU, and I was literally told to say goodbye to my family, and priest read me my last rites.
Wow.
And that was like that aha moment, that literally the come to Jesus moment for me. And what I realized was that, I'm an Inc. 500 entrepreneur and, took companies public and this and that and here and there. And that's all great. However, I realized that what mattered to me most really was my wife and my kids at that point in time. You start to reflect because you go and say, if this is it, what do you leave behind other than, a house or whatever. And it just gave me a lot of clarity. When you speak to people who go through moments like that, that is what you get. You get brutal, honest clarity. And that got me to this point because I started to discuss with myself purpose, and I came to realize that I've had a great life. However, I didn't live up to my standards when it comes to family and marriage, and that's why I made it my purpose now moving forward.
That's powerful. So you get sick, you end up in the hospital. You can see the end. The end is there. The rights have been written, and you took a look at your life, and you said, if this is it, what have I accomplished? You said, my wife and my kids, those things are the most important to me. And really, what's my purpose? Prior to that, you said, hey, I've taken, Inc. 500 companies public. You've done a lot in business. What type of business were you in prior to getting sick?
The easier question is what not,
Okay.
I've been in many different industries. I'm like an entrepreneur by heart,
Yeah.
I do not call it like serial entrepreneurs because I don't even know what that really means. But I've been in shipping, I've been in trading, and so many different things. But I think one of the big moments was when I was an early investor and heading international operations for an online dating company, and with one of the assets was a merit dating platform, at that time the largest. And I learned a lot about relationships, dynamics, psychology. Right there, saw what happens obviously when people are missing something in their marriage, and I looked at millions and millions of data sets, and I've learned a lot and took that, and really that became part of my life. However, I have to say, not until I had that priest on my bedside, I realized, what that really meant to me and my life.
That's a very sobering. I mean, that's a very, very sobering moment. So you've got all of the foundational pieces built in your entrepreneurial journey, if you will. Yeah. You've been through it from shipping to trading to online dating, all the way across the spectrum. So on a daily basis what the entrepreneur is facing. The cash flow crunches. What it is I got to make payroll on Friday. What it is saying, oh my God, I can't believe we're getting sued for this. Oh my God, the best employee just quit. You see all of those things, and you're able to bring that experience to the table within the Dietrich Institute.
Mm-hmm. Exactly. I think it's I'm one of you, and when I look at the space, there's so many people who, and I'm not pointing fingers or anything, but self-claimed experts. And when I worked on online dating, it's the same thing. People, you talk to therapists, you talk to coaches, and everybody has a sample size, and everybody's reality is shaped by whatever they experience and whatever they've been exposed to. But very few people have been exposed to so much. And I'm not saying I'm better or worse. I just, when I make a statement, I make it based on data, I make it based on information and facts, and not how I interpret things. And I think that's the biggest difference between me and, anybody out there. So plus I've been there, and while I built this, and built these companies over the last 20 something years, my marriage was failing, and I think the saying is like the shoemaker's shoes, kids have no shoes or something.
Yeah. I know exactly what you're saying.
Yeah. So, I wasn't drinking my Kool-Aid, and I was sitting there and, on TV, and people asked like, okay, tell us about this celebrity couple, what happened there and why, and this and that. And, and you talk and talk and talk, and everything, but you don't apply it to your own life. Until it was almost too late for me. So, and now I'm married for almost 27 years, 3 kids. And
congratulations on that.
I do what I do. Yeah, thank you. It's more for my wife because she was very patient. I have to say that.
That's good though. I mean,
if she listens.
The thing about it is, and I'm a believer in this, that if you're working with a coach, I am not a believer in the coaches who haven't been in the trenches. I'm not a believer in the coaches who haven't built anything. I think it's real easy to sit back in the stands and be an armchair quarterback, if you will. It's real easy to say, hey, look, just put this system in process and just do this. But there's inflection points in growth, right? It takes you what to get to 5 million in revenue, what to get to 10 million in revenue, what to get to 25 in revenue, what to get in 50 in revenue. And the problem is, if you have a coach that hasn't been through the fire and they haven't been through these things, they don't necessarily have a deep enough tool bag to always help you work through some of the places that you've been. And so I like the fact that you've built companies and you've been an entrepreneur for the last 25 years. I think that's pretty impressive. And you're also an athlete, right? Like you were a collegiate golfer, with the University of Syracuse, right? So you also understand discipline. What does it take to get out on the course? What does it take to practice that swing? What does it take to have that focus and that drive? All of that lends to entrepreneurial experience and growth. How do you use what you've learned as an athlete, as an entrepreneur, to guide and coach the people that come to you looking for help?
I build a system, and you just said, and I was listening, and while you were saying that, you said this is what it takes to go to 5 million and 10 million, and you have processes and procedures, and scalability is important. So you build something that is solid and can grow as you grow, and then you need to change things around. You may need to change people in the company, because the person that creates a process may not be the person that can build the process or manage the process, and right? So you understand that. And interestingly enough, it's almost like a savant. Someone is great in business, but for some reason unable to, you talk to 400 people in your company or 40 people in your company, but you can't talk to 4 people in your house. It's like, and you come home and you sit there, and they treat you with no respect, and you ask yourself, like, how is it that I come to my company and then everybody wants advice and everybody's listening to what I'm saying, and when I come to my house, nobody cares. And I think to break through that process it's not that complicated, but a lot of people who seek advice then get advice from people who don't understand how you react as a business person. And there is a connection between processes and procedures and systems, because that's what you need too when you go through your marriage. 5 years, 10 years, 15 years, and so on and so forth. You need to really understand the process. At the end of the day, it's a relationship, right?
Yep.
And we just take that relationship maybe for more granted, and in a different light than we take a customer or, a client.
Yeah, that's very true. So if I'm an entrepreneur and I've had a really hard day at the office, I worked till midnight the night before trying to get everything done, and I'm back at the office at 5 a.m. I've barely had any sleep. I grind all day long. I get home. I walk in the door at 6:30. I'm absolutely exhausted. The kids are running around like a bunch of yo-yos. Wife saying, "Why are you late for dinner?" And inside, all you want to do is just be left alone. You don't want to answer the questions. You don't want to help put the kids to bed. You don't want to help feed them. You don't want to go out and play ball. You just want to decompress from the living hell that you just worked through. And you did that to support your family. You did that to pay the bills. You did that to keep the Escalade full of fuel or whatever is going on. And now you come into that relationship, and how do you take that next step and reconnect with that wife, reconnect with the spouse, reconnect with the kids, when everything inside of you doesn't want to have anything to do with them, although you still have to show up, you still have to be a dad, you still have to be a husband? How do you separate that set of feelings? Because I know every entrepreneur at some point walks through the door and feels that way. And how do you keep that? How do you train on keeping that connection alive?
So you're obviously describing a very specific moment, right? And these don't fall from the sky. They build up. And I think first of all, you got yourself into that position. And you have to own that. You dig that hole, so you got to get out of that. That's your job. But if you really want to get out of it, you obviously have to do something about it. So it's not going to fix itself. And what you try and do is you try and change, the people around you so they understand, and so on and so forth. However, most likely in that position, what happened is that over time, your family is seeing you under a different light. There have been arguments, there have been fights, and so on and so forth, because you may be overreacting, and maybe you don't have the patience, and so on and so forth. You start yelling at the kids. You regret it maybe, but things are happening. So it kind of gets out of control. And the most important thing is that you need to understand the situation. You need to understand where you are, because if you don't know where you are, it's very difficult to understand how to get to where you need to go to. Think about me, like I call you, I'm in Seattle. I'm like, hey, you know what? I followed your advice. I visited the city. I need to get to the train station.
Yep.
What would you ask me? You would say, but I don't know where you are. I can't tell you how to get to the train station because I need to know where you are. So then I say, I'm here and here. And then you say, okay, now you go this, and there's the train station. But you need to understand where you are first in order to find direction. And that's easier said than done, right? Because you need to detach. And what happens is our brain starts to process information in a different light. There's a cognitive bias happening. So everything you're perceiving, everything you're seeing, and everything you're looking at is your reality. Doesn't need to be the reality of the people around you. So that's a process, and that is actually what we do. And we created a very systematic approach, to be able to help you not to overcomplicate things. You don't need to communicate better. You don't need to do anything more or harder or better, because everything you do harder, better, and more at this point is just going to drive you deeper down into the hole.
So how do you start coaching through that? How do you start identifying what the problems are? How do you start helping that entrepreneur in their marriage, in their life? How do they start getting better from the hole that they've dug themselves into?
So the first step is really just to, hit reset, pause. And as I mentioned before, you go through these dynamic patterns, the drivers. You understand what driver applies to your specific situation. And there are many different dynamics, right? So that's the first step you do.
Yep.
And that's what we do. So once you understand that, you then can start to apply a process. And that's what it is. It's a very systematic process. You go and follow the process. You trust the process. And you start to build certain, let's call it skills, abilities that will allow you to actually reset the dynamics that have developed in your home. And if you don't reset these dynamics, because again, it's not about you at this point, your family, your wife sees you completely different, where she loved you in the beginning and everything was aligned. But over time, as you started to become the person you are today, and it's not your fault, you didn't do anything wrong, but for her, you said it yourself, you work hard to provide, right? There's obviously an expectation, there's a certain behavior involved, but she's now seeing you in a different light. She begins to see you. There's the small argument turns into a bigger one, and over time, she looks at you like through a complete different lens. So everything you do now is just literally, you're doubling down on what she already tries to see, and it's not her, because you're the same person, but it is her brain that really shuts down. That's the cognitive bias. It's called the threat perception bias. You're seeing more of the threat than someone who's going to help. They can't really rate you. You're become unpredictable, unsafe, because unpredictable is unsafe. And everything you are trying to do, you're doing the opposite.
How does one get themselves into that situation?
We all do. We all do. I mean, it's almost like, why do you fasten the seatbelt? You don't fasten the seatbelt because you want to crash into a tree. You fasten the seatbelt so if you ever crash into a tree or a wall, you're protected. And most people don't fasten the seatbelt. There's unfortunately in our marriage not that ding, ding, ding that goes on, reminds you to fasten the seatbelt. We don't. I mean, if we're all honest, like when was the last time you told your wife or whoever's listening, really how much you appreciate her from the bottom of your heart, and not, honey, that tasted great or something,
Yeah.
Like really sat down and you're present, you shut down everything and you're present and you're saying how much you truly appreciate what she is doing in a true, honest, authentic way.
Is that part of the Is that part of the healing process, part of the reset process, is to look into that?
You know, it is. You know, think about it like you try and lose weight. You know, okay, you want to lose 10 pounds. Perfect. I lost after I got sick. I lost 90 pounds. So and I kept it off. So you know, but the point is, you lose weight, and then how you keep it off, and you keep it off because you choose a different lifestyle. You choose a different lifestyle. You call it a healthier lifestyle, whatever it is. I had to do it because again, I was so sick that they told me if I don't do that, I'm going to die sooner than later. So, and after you get a second chance, you know, you don't screw it up. You do everything, you know, they tell you. So, but it's a choice, and every choice we make determines the challenge that comes thereafter in life. I mean, every choice we make determines the challenge that comes thereafter. In business, in life, in marriage.
That's really really powerful. Can you say that one more time for the audience?
Every choice you make determines the challenge you will face thereafter, after you made that choice.
There's a lot of there's a lot of wisdom in that.
Yeah, I mean, and it's true.
It is true. It is true. It is very true. Every choice you make determines the challenge you will face. That's a great statement.
So, and here's what I say. If you agree with that, then I say, okay, then the most important thing for you to do, and now let's talk about business for a second. Let's say you run a company and you have to make a decision. What you will do is you will look at the data, right? At numbers, whatever it is that you can get in terms of information, market research, whatever it is, you will take in, you analyze, and you come up with your decision, right? If the data you're looking at is false or manipulated, or you look at it from the wrong angle, it's pretty obvious that the choice you will make is wrong, and therefore you're going to make, you know, you have a problem thereafter. Maybe not, because maybe you're lucky, but let's rule the luck out for a second. The same thing, and you would never do that in business. You would never. Like, I come to you and say, should we invest in this company, or should we buy this or that? You would say, can I look at the numbers? Like, why would we do this? What does it make sense? How much does it cost? What does it bring? Blah, 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 right? I said, come on, let's just do it. You wouldn't say no, right? As an entrepreneur, business person, nobody would do that. Why do you do that in life? Why don't you apply the same logic? That has nothing. It's just being rational in this case. Versus emotional. You can be emotional in life, and you should be. But when you make these decisions for you, and whatever decision you make for you, there's your family involved. Every third kid in America, I think it's every 3.4 kid in America, grows up without the presence of a father at home. Think about that. So next time you go to a school, you go 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. So that's one stat. And then I say, okay, let's take those three that the other 2 or 2.5 that have a father at home. How many of those are really present?
How many?
I don't know. That's my point. You know, statistics are statistics. But are you a father? You can say, hey, I'm still married. I'm still here. And you just said it yourself. You don't want to put the kids to sleep. You don't want to do this. You don't want to do that. Well, I have to, I hate to break that to you, but you sign up. You said, I want to be a father. So part of you being a father is being present and be a father. Nobody says you need to be the best dad ever, because who knows what that means. But you have to learn to balance it. That's your role. You sign up for it. I didn't sign you up for that. You made that choice.
How do you balance all of those things? How do you look at balance? Balance is a great thing. I mean, you've got health, sleep, work, faith, marriage, love. I mean, the list goes on, right? For all of the things that you have to balance during the day.
Yeah.
And it doesn't.
You know what?
Yeah.
I hear you. I honestly, I hear you. And I'm telling you right now, I screwed up so many times myself until somebody kicked me in the balls, and there's no other way to put it. So I was put into bed. The priest reads me my last rites, and I come to realize how much, how often, how badly I screwed up. So I don't need everybody to go through that same experience.
Mm-hmm.
And that is why I said before, you can. It's like almost telling your kids, don't touch the hot stove because you're going to burn your fingers. And they still touch it. And you're like, well, I told you so.
Okay. So with the experience that you've been through, what are the top 3 things in your balance wheel? Like, what are the top 3 things for you every single day?
It really, really, I mean, for me, like I start the morning and the evenings with a routine. A lot of people go to bed and take all the problems and you know, I'm not that kind of a guy. I really zone out, and I program myself positively for tomorrow, embrace the opportunity that I had for the day, especially after you go through a near-death experience. You appreciate the time given in a much different light. So, you know, again, I understand that's me, very, very me. But I think when you start to do that, and when you start to say, why is this happening to me? And you turn it around and say, things are not happening to you, things are happening for you. You turn this around and you really look at that from that angle. And you need to do that. That's a shift of perspective. And that's one thing I coach too, is really learn to change perspective. And that is what helps. And then you start to see things from a very different light. Because trust me, you can say, I'm so busy and I'm so annoyed and I'm so tired. If then all of a sudden things are taken away from you, all of a sudden, for whatever reason, like it happened to me, you see it from a very different light. So just think about that. I have a great exercise, exercise. You go, you close your eyes, and you travel 5 years into the future. 5 years into the future, and you wake up in the morning. So who's next to you when you wake up in the morning? And then you get up, you go into the kitchen, you look outside the window. What do you see? The beach, a park, the city. What do you see? You turn around, you look on the kitchen table, there's keys, car keys. What kind of car do you drive? You look at the fridge, there are photos on the fridge. Who's on there? Kids, you, friends, your wife. And then you walk into the bathroom, turn on the light, and you look in through the mirror. And who's the person you're looking at? Is that the person you envision to be in 5 years? Or is that the person you don't want to be in 5 years? And that's a very simple exercise. And you can go deeper and deeper into that exercise. You can open the window. You can smell the forest. You can smell the beach. You can smell the city, whatever it is, right? You can pour a coffee or tea in the morning. You can really dive into that. And you start to understand where you want to go. If you have the chance to be there in 5 years.
That's pretty powerful.
That's up to you.
That's pretty powerful. So you walk someone through that, you walk a potential client through that, and that really looks at now you're starting to establish the driving behaviors that are going to get them there. Right?
Yeah. And I ask you to write it down. Start to write it down. Start to put more and more details. It's almost like people say, oh, it's like a vision board. And I say, yeah, it's like a vision board. It's your vision. It's your 5-year plan. It's yours. And the more vivid you make that plan, the higher the chances that you actually get there. And that is what you should do when you go to bed. That is what you should do when you sit somewhere and have a minute or two. Think about these things. Bring that in front of your mind.
That's very powerful. That's very, very powerful. And so you put these milestones of change in front of somebody.
Mm-hmm.
And you help coach them through who is next to you. Is it your wife or is it somebody else?
Yeah.
Right?
Or maybe nobody.
Or maybe nobody. That could be the case. Look outside.
It's the challenge. Remember, the choice you make
What
will
do you
determine that
see?
challenge.
What keys are the car? The photos
Yeah.
on the fridge, who? And then you look in the bathroom mirror, and who are you looking at? The person you want to be, or somebody that you don't?
Yeah.
So you've had this life and death experience. You've got all this clarity.
Mm.
What is, in your mind, what is the purpose of life? Why are we here?
I do believe, and again, you go through an experience like that, you start to read about other people, you meet people who've been in the same situation. I don't know why you meet these people, because I've never met people before. Maybe I didn't pay attention, but I don't know. And a lot of people, say the same thing. So you literally have that pre near death experience life, and then you have a post near death experience life. And we all come down to, we have this gift life, but we don't necessarily appreciate it every day, because we get into this business, next deal, I'm tired, scrolling, wasting time, and we don't appreciate the opportunity that's been presented to us. Now, if you don't understand, and people, when I talk to people, some people say, my purpose is to be a good husband. My purpose is to be the best CEO out there, blah, 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 blah. And I said, that's not your purpose. That's not a purpose. That's a role you're assigned to yourself, by choice. But what's your purpose? Your purpose is something that you're really good at. The Japanese have a great term called ikigai. I don't know if you ever heard about it.
It's the overlapping
Ikigai.
circles, right?
Yes, exactly.
And the purpose is in the middle.
Exactly. And that really is what it is, which brings me back to your question about work-life balance, because I think it's a hoax. I think it's BS. Because if you really have to balance that the way you explained it, and I'm not saying you explained it wrong, I think you explained it to the point. That's exactly how most people feel, is tired and this, and I schlepp myself to the office and blah, blah, blah. Everybody wants a piece of me, right? I get it. But that is not how you are able to weather the storms, and there are many coming, right? And you will tire out. But if you understand what your purpose is, which means what are you really good at? What are you people willing to pay you money for? Where can you enrich other people's life, right? What makes sense? Then you begin to build your life around that purpose. And then you don't really need all the balancing, because it all makes sense. You take it with a complete different, you look at it under a different light, if you follow.
Because you
Right?
don't need the balance, because you're in harmony.
No, you are. And even the worst shit that comes down your way, and hey, my life is also, I've issues and complications, and I'm not saying I live the dream life and everything is easy peasy, lemon squeezy, no. And do I have arguments? Yes. And do I have fights with my wife? Absolutely. But I'm able to get through it. And there's not a lot that can happen to me that, pushes me out of equilibrium.
You mentioned that there's going to be storms, and there's going to be a lot of them.
Yeah.
And that's life every day, right? There's always the next mountain in front of you. There's always the next storm coming.
Yes.
How do you coach an individual, or even look at your own life, in how are you preparing to weather the next storm, the storm that you don't even see on the horizon yet?
I think the first thing you need to understand that actually is happening, because a lot of people, they climb a mountain and then they're on the top, and there's the peak, and you go like, okay, but that's not what it is. It's just one mountain, there are more to come, and you can't just bypass them.
That's right.
Yeah, but that's, if you start to realize that, then this becomes less of an obstacle, but life is what it is. People talk about mistakes. I say, okay, mistakes, perfect. Take that. Mistake is growth. You don't make a mistake. What happens in business, if you are lucky and you don't make mistakes and you do things like 3, 4, or 5 times, chances are that you will make a mistake, that we will run into an obstacle sooner than later. That might be a huge setback for you. And then how do you deal with that? So you better deal with these things early on, and you learn how to live with it, and you make it part of the whole journey, and you understand it's a journey. You don't see it as obstacles and problems and this and that. That's just part of life. You sign up for it. You're an entrepreneur, you're a CEO, and you have a family. That's your life. Whatever. I didn't put a gun next to your head and said, do this, become a CEO, marry her, get 3 kids.
I like that what you've built into this is, and you've said it several times, you signed up for it. You signed up for it. You chose it. I think that's a big piece. Just like the scenario of the guy who walked in the door and was beat to death and couldn't work anymore and doesn't want to do these things. He signed up to stay late at the office. He didn't turn his phone off. He left early in the morning. He let those things, or she, whatever it is, right? In that example.
100%. Yeah.
And you're in charge of that. That takes ownership.
But then people will say, whoa, hold it. It's easier said than done. I didn't really sign up for it. This was handed to me and blah, 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 blah. That's just a story you're telling yourself. Again, everybody defines reality based on the stories they have consumed in the past that we're told, the culture and how you brought up. And everybody has a different version of reality. So that's just your version of reality. And if you keep telling yourself all these stories, that's how you look at things. Mm-hmm. So trust me, you don't need to have that experience that I went through just to realize that is all storytelling. It is. Mm-hmm. As much as you think you're so important and you're so essential to everything, you're not. You're really very unimportant and not essential.
Yeah, it's true.
Even the most important people in this world, the ships come and go. I mean, that's just the way it is.
The Elon Musk will be replaced.
It is.
It's going.
And we all look at him right now and we think like, oh, he's he is the greatest guy on earth. Oh, maybe not, whatever. But you follow. Yes.
Yep.
You're right.
Okay, so we've covered a lot of ground. You have had this near-death experience. You mentioned the priest read you your last rites. How has that impacted your faith? Do you believe in God, not believe in God? What component does that play?
I did believe in God before, and quite frankly, I did not realize what was going on. I was handed the phone, and the priest wanted to talk to me, and I didn't even understand why. And I was they gave me a lot of drugs and whatnot, so I was on cloud number 7 or 12 or 15. I felt much better, but I didn't realize how bad it was. And then he talked to me, and I thought he wanted to ask me if I want to come to the mass. But then he asked me all these questions, and I said, "Why is he asking me? It's very personal questions you're asking me here. Like I don't feel comfortable answering." And then he's like, "Hey, do you think I should, are you comfortable me reading you the last rites?" And I said, yeah, sure. I did not understand that either at that point. Then he started. And then I'm like, what is he saying here? What is he talking about? And then I handed the phone back to the nurse, and I looked at the doctor, and the doctor said, the next call should be to your family, and you should say goodbye. And I said, is it really that bad? And he said, yeah. So, and I obviously, I talk, it wasn't a fluent conversation. I was really beat up. But, it's just, I believed in God before. And then when everybody left the room, trust me, I started crying and it all came down. It's just a lot to process. And I prayed. I begged for a second chance to make a first impression. I promised, which is why I'm sitting here, which is why I'm doing what I'm doing. I said, I promise I will follow my purpose. Because again, I think we get this gift, and we're down here on planet Earth, and you have that opportunity, and use it every day. and do not believe it's running through the office and next deal and next deal. Be successful and earn money and do this. This is all very important, but do not forget that life is much bigger than that.
That's a great reminder. One of the things that I'd like you to talk about or share about is the concept of crules.
Crappy rules.
Yeah.
Crules. I think they're cruel because these are rules. We all, as I said before, you shape your reality based on whatever it's been told, right? Your school, your parents, everything shapes your version of reality, the way you see things. And you live by these rules, work hard, do this, do that, boys don't cry, blah, blah, blah. And these rules are what you inherit. And this is the important point, at a certain point in life, you should ask yourself, are these rules the rules that I believe in? I truly believe in after I experience life now? Is this something that I truly believe in, or is it something that was just put onto me and I just consumed it and took it as granted? But we don't do that really, because we're also society, social media, blah, blah, blah. You see this, the neighbor buys a new car, the wife points at her friend, look, she's got a new handbag, so you have to get it too. So you work harder. There's the next, 11 p.m. Office day, blah, 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 blah. Like, is that really what it is? And why do you do what you do? But we don't question that. So we don't stop for a minute and ask ourselves, you're running, but are you in a hamster wheel or, which looks like a career ladder when you look at it from the bottom, it's a hamster wheel. It's just, or are you actually running and moving?
That's powerful stuff. So what we're saying is question the rules. Do you believe these? Are these true for you? Or did somebody just pass these down and say, hey, this is what you should follow? So you look at all
and
of
are you
this.
doing the same thing to your kids? Are you doing the same thing to your kids?
A lot of people probably are. They're pushing the values and beliefs that they have onto the kids, and they're going through that process. So the Dietrich Institute, I mean, it really seems like you're doing some powerful stuff. You're also the author of Unfogged, the Amazon bestseller that talks about truth, resilience, purpose, and false kings, a raw exploration of leadership and integrity. What are some of these false kings that we get ourselves tied into?
It's really rooted in this system that we are born into, especially as man, right? If you think about it, you're running after deal, you're improving, you said it yourself, you do this, you come home exhausted because you provide and right? But when is enough? It's never, that really is the problem. And you're not really happy about that. You said it, the way you portrayed it earlier was not that you were happy with the situation. You were like, man, I'm tired. I'm done with this. I do it all for you guys, and now you want this from me. Like, what else, right? If my best isn't good enough, what else you want? So, but that's the wrong way to look at it, isn't it? So you put yourself, you think like you're making a lot of money and the second car and this and that, and you feel like a king, but you're really just you're just a puppet in the system. And you don't actually know that. And you burn out and you take it all in, and you have mental health problems and but you choose that. That's the false king. The king who thinks he's a king, but who has a broken crown, or, not a crown at all. Just because everybody else points at you, where's your validation coming from?
That's a great question.
Yeah,
where does your
but then you ask
validation come from?
And then you ask your family. Ask your family. And that is when your wife has that argument with you where she said, well, I didn't ask for all this. And you go like, whoa, hold on. Okay, How about no private school? How about, right? And like, you come from one extreme to another.
Hmm. What's the
Another
what's the
house and this
question?
and that.
What's the question you should ask your family?
I think it's not just one question. I think it's a conversation.
Hmm.
The first thing you got to ask yourself, and here's another one, as much as every eye forms its own beauty, every person shapes their own happiness. Every heart forms its own form of love. And that is up to you. So if you're not happy, and if you're constantly exhausted and this and that, and then you're sad that you couldn't attend the school's play and whatnot, like, okay, that's not what you're not happy. Then you need to really have that conversation, and you need to say, are we aligned? Is this really what you want? And trust me, some people are driven. The wife will say, no, go out there, we need a bigger house. But do we really need a bigger house? What does that really mean? And that is a choice. There we go again.
All right, this has been really powerful. So, I mean, you're definitely doing something different in the space. I mean, I talk to a lot of people. You're the first one I've talked with this perspective. So I think that's fantastic. I mean, I think you're on a whole nother, you're on a whole nother plane, my man. You're on a whole nother program. I think it's actually super powerful. I mean, what you're doing is actually really incredible. I mean, everybody should work with you. I mean, everybody should get in here and, get into the Dietrich Institute. I mean, what you're doing is really powerful. I mean, I'm questioning my own sanity at this particular point on the call, and we're only, 46 minutes in. And,
yep.
Like I'm thinking, okay, I can do that better. Okay, I can do this better. Okay, you know what? I did sign up for that. Yep, I did sign up for that. Oh, yep, I did dig that hole. Oh, dang it. Like there's a lot of that. And I know, it's powerful.
I mean, you're laughing, you're still smiling. I have people who cry because they come to realize that, they're stuck in situations where they really don't even know how to get out. But there is always a way out, and that transformation is different, for everybody. And you're absolutely right. And work with me or work with anybody, but do this. The problem I see is that a lot of people in our space, again, they're like, you said earlier, the guru, and what's the difference between a guru and the coach? And I say the guru probably has traveled the path up to the mountain and down, and the coach has never been up there on the peak, never went and never hurt himself, never stumbled and fell. It's like just pointing the way. You go here and there and this and that, and then you reach the top. That's all bullshit. Mm-hmm. If you haven't seen it, if you didn't go through it, how the heck do you want to tell someone to do it? Just who the heck you are,
Yeah.
It's like the chain smoker telling you to live a healthy lifestyle. It's like, whatever.
Yeah. No, I think I know that you're right on with that. And the way that I look at it is, I could sit across from you today and I could tell you how to build $100 million business and walk you through what that looks like. But what I'm not going to do is tell you how to go fix your marriage and tell you how to fix your kids and tell you how to get the purpose. And I'm not going to sit down with you and say, hey, in 5 years, who's laying next to you, if anyone? Look outside and, what do you see? What keys for the car are on the counter? What photos are on the fridge? And when you get to the bathroom, are you the person that you're happy looking at? Like, did you build it all in vain? Is it all broken? And I think, the truth is I might laugh today, but tomorrow I could cry. The line is so thin, and what makes you laugh will make you cry. So I'm a believer in, never look at where somebody is at and point a finger. Never. Be very, very careful about being humble. Be very careful about being generous. Be very careful about appreciating those around you, because in a lick of a moment, before you blink an eye, you can be on the other side of that track. And you can go through that experience that you thought you never could. Everything can be taken away from you in a matter of seconds. It's not even minutes how fast your life can change. And so I'm a real believer in being thankful for the life that you have, and giving it the very, very best that you possibly can. I love that you start the day with the routine. I love a lot of the things that you've talked to, I think are really powerful. But the big takeaway that I really pull from today is step one is really owning where you are at. What's the brutal truth of where I am? Like, all of the decisions you've made, whether your family won't talk to you, whether they disrespect you, whether your wife doesn't want to see you, maybe she's not the person that loves you now, or the threat perception, everything that she's gone through, that you've gone through, all of that is because of you. And you have to get that. And then you have to decide, step two is, where do you want to be? And then step three is, how do I get there? And start making those changes. That's what I've taken from today's, I'm going to say lesson. Perfect. I'm going to say I went to school at the Dietrich Institute today, and I'm learning from you. And I mean, you're definitely a master in it. But you've been to that other side, and you've had that experience that shows you, what's happening. And I think it's so important. How can people get in touch with you? How do they work with you? How do they start to explore, I'm going to say, the other side, the other reality of life? I mean, because that's really what we're talking about here.
Yeah. I mean, you go to our website, obviously, dietrichinstitute.com, and just connect with us, send us an email, and usually what we do is we schedule a call and just go through your situation and see, is it something that we can help with? Are you where you want to be? Some people need time, sometimes it's not the right moment. Because you said it yourself, you really have to be in that position to understand that that's the path. And if you said one thing, and I just wanted to say that because you also see that in business, is people have a tendency to not own their mistakes or their choices,
Yep.
And I'm not saying every choice is a mistake, but you need to own every choice. And there's a tendency for us to point fingers and said, well, I there was no alternative for me. I had to do this, and so on and so forth. And that's just a lie. And you can tell that to yourself, but then it's something that I can help you with, right? You tell yourself a lie is you tell yourself a lie, and you need to come to me, and you need to be at a moment where you say, I'm ready to tell the truth. Mm-hmm. Not to me. I'm not a priest. You tell it to yourself.
Yeah, that's the truth. Is you have to be honest with yourself. Social media. Are you on social media? Are you on LinkedIn, Instagram, Facebook, TikTok?
Yeah. Instagram, everywhere. Tino Dietrich, and Dietrich Institute. We're all over the place, and yeah.
Tino, you have an incredible business, a wonderful calling and purpose. I think, I mean, it doesn't matter who you are. I mean, what we've talked about today impacts every single human being, whether or not you're in business, whether you're the mom who's taking the groceries home and taking care of the kids. Like, every single person is impacted by this.
Thank you.
Very powerful.
I appreciate that. I truly do. And I'm always happy when people get that perspective. Not about me, I honestly, I don't take myself that serious. It's more about the perspective.
And it's the purpose, right? It's the help.
Yeah.
It's the help. I mean, you've given me clarity in my own life, and we've just been hanging out for 45 minutes doing a podcast show, which, is like, is a lot of fun. But the thing is, there's so many people that are going to be helped. I think even just from this show, just from this conversation, we're going to change lives today. So I'm blessed to be able to hang out with you.
No, thank you. Thank you for giving me this opportunity.
All right, I've got one final question. It's my last question of the show. We've got a big billboard, a whiteboard. It's on the side of the road. Thousands of people drive by it every day. In one sentence, one phrase, one word, what would you share with the world today?
I would say appreciate life. That is what I would say. Just very simple.
Appreciate life.
Yeah. In every angle and instant. And that means you have to be grateful.
One of the things you've talked about here multiple times is that life is a gift. You've probably said it 6 or 7 times. It's a gift. It's a gift. It's a gift. And you know what? It is a gift. The gift of life.
It is.
And we don't always appreciate it in our current circumstances. I think that is such a huge takeaway. What a powerful show we've had today. Tino, this has been absolutely outstanding. This is the Entrepreneurial Journey. I'm your host, Dave Westcott. We are back 9:15 a.m. Pacific Standard Time every single Tuesday. Check this show out. Give us a like, give us a share, drop your comments into the comment box. We'll get back to you. And connect with the Dietrich Institute. Get with Tony, get with the team. What is happening there and what they're working through is impactful in your life in every way. I can't recommend this enough. Get the book. Go on Amazon and check out Unfogged, Amazon's bestseller. Get that and follow the Dietrich Institute online. Tony, it's been awesome hanging out with you, my man. Thank you so much for your time. It's been a pleasure.
Every CEO's journey has its Everest. The moments when the path forward feels steep, uncertain, and alone. With Sherpa CEO coaching, you don't climb alone. Our experienced coaches are your guides, helping you break through barriers, sharpen your strategy, strengthen your leadership, and build a team that can carry you higher. With tailored one-on-one coaching, strategic planning, and real accountability, your summit is within reach. Sherpa CEO Coaching, your guide to confidence, clarity, and extraordinary business growth. Get coached and learn more at sherpaceo.com.